Hi, this is part 3 of my devlog, developer's video log. On the first one, or in the first video, I had done the Unity Essentials pathway. I'd started learning Unity from scratch and I learned the basics of it. I did a few things, didn't really understand a lot of what I was doing, and it was basically an introduction to Unity. Which is the start of my game design journey. I want to be a game designer, and I figured that the best way to do that is to do game development. So start with understanding a bit of the programming side of things, a bit of the visuals, a little bit of everything, and then I'll be able to work with others on designing a game and be a game design lead, possibly, with all my creative ideas. So getting the fundamentals down, I think, is pretty important. And that's why I'm making these videos, because it is a record of my journey. In the second video, I made a car drive around cones, and I made a plane fly up and down and made the propeller spin, which was a basic introduction to programming. It is learning to code, basically. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing what I learned in the second prototype in the programming journey, and then I am actually going to work on the second challenge. So the challenge that comes along with this prototype, this particular module, I have not done the challenge yet. So I'm going to import the challenge files, I'm going to look at the code, and I'm going to see here live, well, not live, but as I make this video, this third part, I'm going to see if I can remember what I learned on my journey through the second prototype. So without further ado, I'm going to go through what I did in this prototype, and then I'm going to load the challenge, and I'll see if I can successfully complete it. So let's go. Here in Unity, this is the second prototype. It gave me a few files. I could choose from some animals, I could choose from some food, and I could choose from some people. List of people that I could choose from. I went with this guy here, some sort of farmer with a straw hat. From the animals, I decided to go with dogs, so I chose 3 of the dogs from this list of dogs. And what do dogs eat? Well, they eat meat. So I went with the steak. I chose this nice big slab of steak. So the premise is that I had to learn to make my character move left and right, to limit the movement so that it doesn't go shooting off the screen. I had to make the dogs spawn randomly outside of the screen and move downwards at different speeds. So the bigger the dog, the faster it moves. I had to learn to spawn the meat each time I press spacebar, so that's a key input, and it shoots the meat out. And if the meat connects with the dog disappears because it's eaten the food. And the final thing is, if the dog gets past you, then it does a debug message down the bottom that says game over. I didn't create a game over screen. That was not part of this prototype. I'll quickly show you the game in action. You shoot lots of stakes out. See that one's pretty fast. There is no score, but as you can see, if I connect with the dog, the little ones are so small, and the interval between the dogs spawning is different for each one. Oh, the St. Bernard got past. So as you can see down the bottom here, it says game over. So they keep spawning, and I can just keep shooting the meat out, and my guy doesn't move past about that point there, and he doesn't move past about that point there. It's quite far to move across the whole screen, to be honest. But I can just keep shooting the meat out and feeding these dogs. So that is the game. You can see up the top here in my game the scene window where the dogs are actually spawning. So they're spawning not at the very top, but definitely outside of the game screen. And then they just trot along and I shoot the meat out and feed them. That's how the game goes. So let's jump on to the main part of this, which is the scripts. And there are 5 scripts. So the first script that I did was PlayerController, which I'll load in Visual Studio here. And first of all, I'm trying to remember here. So I did all this code, and when I did it, I understood it. If I look through it now, I probably don't understand everything about it. I think this is part of the journey, part of the learning experience, and that is not remembering 100% everything that you are learning, not remembering it immediately. But the more you do something, the more you're going to understand it and learn it. And I think understanding is the more important part of this. So before I even design a game, I want to get through all this learning to get a bit of a fundamental understanding, even if I can't off the top of my head solve the problems to write the code. Anyway, there are a few floating integers here. Our horizontal input, as you can see, I've put some comments in, so it allows me to move the player horizontally using key inputs. I set the speed that the player moves at, and I set the range at which it is limited. So it sets basically the bounds, the boundaries for the player. So I learned about if statements. This was, I think, one of the biggest things in this particular prototype was learning if statements. So I've set the range of about 15, so that's basically 15 meters from the player's start point. And I use positives and negatives. So first of all, I'm saying if the X position, which is the left and right, is less than the negative range, which is negative 15. So you start at 0. If you move left, you're going negative. If you move right, you're going positive. So left until I reach negative 15. So I'm only using the X, and then the Y and the Z I don't touch, but I still have to put them in because it's vector 3. So if I hit that point of negative 15, then it puts my character into that position at the new position of that position itself. So it's essentially saying, put yourself, if you try to go past this point, put yourself at this point. And that is what limits it. So I did it for the left and for the right. You can see if it's greater than the positive range of 15, then it transforms the position in the Unity window, the transform part of the inspector window, as I showed in my last video, sets that position to be its position of 15 of the X range. So it's stopping me from going any further because it says, well, you've reached this point, therefore be at that point. And then for horizontal input, so being able to move left and right with the left and right arrow keys or the A and D keys, I've said, I explained, I think, this horizontal input thing and vertical input thing in my last video, but input.getAccess horizontal tells it that I want to use the right key to go right, the left key to go left, so horizontal input, and then I use the same thing of transform.translate using the input, and then I just multiply it by all the right things. This is how fast my character is going to go because I've set a variable for that. That's how fast I can move it left and right. And the last thing for the player controller is being able to create the stake that gets fired out from it. And so instantiate is a key function. I think it's a function. It's a key thing that makes a prefab or a clone of something spawn into the game. So every time I press the space bar, it will instantiate, it will create the projectile prefab. And so in Unity, I had to tell it what that was. So the game object projectile prefab, we set it up here. And then what that does is it creates in Unity, I will just hide Visual Studio, on the player, because the player controller is attached to it, and you can see the projectile prefab field is here. And what I did is I dragged the prefab of, in my prefabs, the stake. So in the script, I dragged the stake onto there, so it's telling it that is what I want you to spawn when you press spacebar. So it all makes sense. You've got your movement, you've got restricting your movement, and you've got press spacebar to spawn a game object that you are setting in Unity. The next part of this is that I want to be able to spawn the dogs. And so I'm just going to pop back to Visual Studio, and this is the SpawnManager. So I wanted to be able to spawn the dogs, and I've forgotten a lot of this, to be honest. As I was doing it, it made sense, and I went through it. So I'm setting a few more integers here. This used an array. Here we go. This is what I learned. I learned about creating arrays. So if you put these square brackets by the game object, then you're saying, I want to create an array in Unity called animal prefabs. And then in Unity, I have this array called animal prefabs here. I set how many items in the array, which is 3, because I have 3 different types of dog that spawn. And then I drag the prefabs themselves into each of these slots, and so they fill in the array. And an array is a list of things, kind of like a database, where you pull in items and you can interact with those items. And it allows you to just do stuff with those items from the array. So I set where they spawn on the x-axis. I set a range, so I set a limit to the range, which is 20. The Z position, which is how far in front of the character. So 20 means that it's off screen that they spawn in. I just ensured that was it. I didn't want them to spawn for 2 seconds, and then I wanted them to spawn every 2 seconds. So invoke repeating was an already built-in thing, and so it's telling me to continuously repeat this thing, spawn random animal. So I have my spawn random animal method down here, and so when I put the invoke repeating thing in and tell it this is what I want you to repeat, it's repeating this new method that I created. It's not under the per frame update thing that I've been doing in the past. It is its own method. So I'm saying I want to create an integer called animal index, and I'm setting a random range. Yeah, I don't remember all of this. I just know it works. So I've got this array, animal prefabs, I've got the random animal spawn, I've got the spawn position set, I've got the range of where the animals can spawn in. They're always going to spawn at the same Z position, but the X position is going to be a range between -20 and 20, and then it'll create a copy of that, a clone of one of those animals from the array at the spawn position, which is taken randomly. And then it doesn't, because they don't change, I have to put this other bit in about rotation, where it's referring to the same array, but I don't change anything here. This is basically saying set the rotation as it is, just as it is. So that's the SpawnManager. It's very important. It allows things to appear when you want them to appear. I had to set some collision detection, so this was basically so that when the stake and the dog cross paths, something happens. So I want because the dogs are acting as a trigger, it means that when the meat passes through into that area where the trigger activates, in other words, a collision, then it destroys the game object, but it also destroys the object that is colliding with it. So when I had destroy game object, what it did is it just made the dog disappear. But then when I add other.game object, because I did this on trigger enter, the meat disappears at the same time as well. So this allowed me to make sure that that both objects were destroyed when they made contact with each other. I also had destroy out of bounds, so basically you don't want things to stay indefinitely when they're out of the game window. You don't want them there anymore. You don't want them to exist, so you destroy them. And so in this, I basically set the top position and the bottom position, and I said when a game object goes past a certain point at the top, which in other words is the stake that's being shot out, it'll be destroyed, and if an animal goes down below, then it'll be destroyed. But I also want to make sure that if an animal goes below, I get this game over little message down in the debug tagline down the bottom. I think that was basically everything. It was a lot of programming. It was a lot of doing this stuff. I think MoveForward was the other thing. This is basically setting the speed of the stake, so how fast the pieces of stake shoot out whenever you press spacebar, and I want the stake to shoot out forward, and then yeah, so that basically was setting some parameters around the projectile itself. Interesting that it's a separate script, but that's the way things are. Right, so that's what I did. I learned all of this. I could not recreate it. Let me be honest, I could not recreate this. If I went through it again, it would be a lot easier to do it a second time round, but to think through what I have to do and how to write the coding. At this point in time, I'm still new, I'm still learning the basics, and there's a lot that I simply don't know and can't remember. Okay, on to the challenge, I guess. I think it's time for me to try this challenge that's been set as part of this prototype. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load the challenge files in. I'm going to go through what's wrong with the programming, and then I'm going to take a look at the scripts and see if I can fix them to make it do what it's supposed to do. I've loaded the challenge files into my project. It provides a video. It's a very small video down the bottom right here, but I'm going to just play that quickly so that you can see what I'm supposed to actually accomplish with this challenge. So as you can see, our ball falls, and pressing spacebar makes a dog trot out from the guy, and the dog is supposed to capture the balls. Oh, and game over. Alright, so that's what I'm supposed to achieve. Randomly falling colored balls, press spacebar, dog trots out and intersects the balls. So the dog and the balls are both going to have to act as triggers. So the first part of this is when I open the project, I'm actually just gonna zoom out a bit, rotate that a bit, let's move just a bit, and let's see what happens when I play it with all its bugged coding. As you can see at the top, the dogs are just spawning at the top and running off into the distance. They're also not being destroyed. They are just being created and left indefinitely, trotting off across the top of the screen. If I press spacebar, at the foot of the guy here, you can see a green ball is just spawning and falling through the floor. Every time I press spacebar, a little green ball is spawning halfway through the floor and just dropping. It's just falling. Look at those balls. They're just falling through the ground. So the first part of this challenge is I have to make the balls spawn from the top of the screen and not the dogs. So I'll look at the scripts. The first thing I think is probably MoveForward or SpawnManager. It's talking about spawning, so I want the balls to spawn from the top of the screen. So I'm going to jump to Visual Studio. Let's have a look. SpawnManager X. Okay, so we've got an array called ball prefabs. Cool. We've got the limit is -22 left and 7 right. We've got the spawn position of 30, a 1 second start delay, a 4 second interval. Invoke repeating means that the thing continues throughout. Spawn random ball, okay. Vector 3, spawn position is new vector 3 random range, okay. And instantiate, create ball prefabs. Oh, 0. Just 0. Okay. So I think I understand what I have to do here. Let's look in Unity, because this is where we have the ball prefabs. There we go, it's spawning the dog. So I have to find the prefabs, and we'll go ball 1 in element 0, ball 2 in element 0, and ball 3 in element 0. Now let's test it. As you can see, the balls are spawning. Yeah. Alright, blue ball spawn, blue ball spawn, blue ball spawn. It's all ball 1. And I know why. But that's cool. It's the ball spawning now. So the ball is falling. Good news. Okay. So the next step after I make the balls spawn from the top of the screen. Let's have a look, because I don't know if that includes. It includes making them random. Okay, so let's go back to the code. So I'll just jump on Visual Studio, back to the code, and I don't want it to spawn the just element 0. I want it to actually spawn any of them. How do I do that? I don't want 0. I want the name of... Let's just check this one, SpawnManager. What did we do here? It was called animal index. So animal index. What was animal index? It was an integer. Aha. So we had this thing which was create a new integer with a random range within the array. Okay. Okay, so in here, that was within the spawn random animal thing. So for the spawn random balls, what we want to do is we want an integer called ball index. And then it's going to be ball prefabs. Okay. And then we want to call this ball index and ball index. Okay, so integer called ball index is a random. I don't know what the 0 is. From 0 to the limit of the array, which is 2, because it's 0, 1, and 2. So the length of it, oh sorry, 3, because you include the full length of it, because it's 3 elements, 3 different colored balls. It's between 0 and 3. So ball prefabs.length is 3. We know that because in Unity there are 3 items in the array. All right, so it's from 0 to the maximum of the array. Cool, I think I've done it right. So if I go back to Unity, then it should, by all rights, once I load, okay, so I'm going to load the game and we'll see if it spawns different colored balls. So far so good. We have a red one. We have a green one. Excellent. So it's working. It's also spawning them in random places. So that range of where the balls can spawn, that's already been sorted. Cool. So first step, make the balls spawn from the top, different color balls. It's done. Okay. So the next step is that I want to be able to spawn the dogs instead of the balls. So why is my player spawning dogs? Let's find out. Well, because the dog prefab has the wrong thing in it. So I think I don't have to change the script at all. I just have to get the prefab of the dog and drop it in there and run it, and we shall see. There. Oh, lots of... Look at all the dogs. Wow. I can spawn dog after dog after dog. And, whoa, the balls are disappearing really quickly. What? Whoa. Why is it... The ball is disappearing so quickly. The dog's not even getting close to it. And I know why. Okay. It's kind of exciting to know why things are happening. It's very cool doing this, recording this as I go and as I try to solve this. Okay, so I've made the dogs spawn. Excellent. That was the next step. Now, the balls are destroyed if anywhere near the dog. They should only be destroyed when coming into direct contact with a dog. So what I want to do is check the box, the collision box in Unity. So that's what I want to do. I need to check the doggy prefab, and what we'll do is we'll check the box collider. Why can't I edit it? Why can't I edit the collider on the dog? Ah, because it has to be in the prefab. Look at the size of that thing. Jeez Louise. All right, I'm going to resize this and then I'll come straight back. Okay, this box collider is much better. So as you can see, I've shrunk it down to surround the dog. I don't want it really, really close to it because it'll make the game harder. But yeah, basically it is a lot more sensible. So I've sorted that out and I'm just going to check the prefab of the balls. So the collider on the balls. Let's check a prefab on the ball. Yep, so the collider on the balls is fine. I can go in to edit the collider and it's basically the shape of the ball. So that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And now that is the next problem solved. So they should only be destroyed when coming into direct contact with the dog. Okay, excellent, that's done. Nothing is being destroyed off screen. The balls should be destroyed when they leave the bottom of the screen, and the dogs should be destroyed when they leave the left side of the screen. So I need to go into the code now, and I need to check. So which code am I checking? Destroy out of bounds, that's the one. This is it. Okay, so left limit, bottom limit. Destroy game object. Destroy out of bounds. So I've got a destroy out of bounds script. This looks good to me. So I've got a left limit. Excellent, that'll destroy the dogs. I've got a bottom limit. Excellent. Okay. Position.x left limit, yes. Position.z bottom limit, yes. That's the up and down. Destroy the game object. Yep, that looks good to me, actually. Okay, let's just check that the script is attached. So I'm going to go back in to here. We'll check that the DestroyOutOfBounds is attached to the dog. The DestroyOutOfBounds is attached to the dog. Okay, I'm just going to cross-check this with my existing script. So, void update. Destroy dog if X position is less than the left limit. Okay, destroy balls if Y position is less than, no, it's Z position, not Y. Let me just double check that in Unity again. So, figuring it out, I want to check position. Let's go and I think we'll just chuck a dog in. We'll chuck a dog in. And what we'll do is we'll check the position. So this is the X position. So when it hits about, where? About there. So that's about 43. So we'll say 45. We'll say when it hits 45 of X that it gets destroyed, right? So we'll go back into the code. Okay, left limit of 45. 45. Okay. And bottom limit. Let's go with bottom limit. Okay, we'll just grab a ball. Okay, and we want it to disappear if it gets to there, basically. So that is a Y of, it doesn't actually matter. We'll make it disappear at like Y5, Y negative 5. Cool. Okay, we'll make it Y negative 5. And we'll go to code. So Y negative 5. Yep, negative 5. And that's Y, if Y position transform position dot Y is less than bottom limit. That's bottom limit, and transform dot position dot X is greater than the left limit. That seems all right to me. Left limit, yep. Destroy the game object. Okay, it looks good to me, but am I missing something? Destroy out of bounds. If transform.position.z is greater than top bound. If destroy, what? Transform.position.z. .x. Transform.position.y. Destroy out of bounds. Transform.position.z greater than, else if transform.position.z is less than, and debug log game over. I mean, I could add that. It's probably going to ask me to add that anyway. So while I'm here, if the balls get through, debug dot log game over. Okay, might as well add it in now. I think I've got it right. So dogs go left if they're greater than the left limit, which is 45, then they're destroyed. Fantastic. All right, we'll zip back to Unity and we'll just double check that this is the case. So let's see. Go. Game over screen came up and the balls are disappearing. And the dogs are not disappearing. Okay, so the balls are disappearing, but the dogs are not. Okay. Dog, 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 dog. Move forward, destroy out of bounds X. Destroy out of bounds X. Let's double check that script again. Okay, let's check the script. Oh, less than. This is greater than? Maybe it is supposed to be less than. Is it supposed to be less than? I thought it was greater than. It should be greater than the left limit. We'll try less than. Okay, let's try it. So I will pop back to Unity and I will play again and we'll see. Nope, that's broken. And the balls are no longer falling. I think I've broken something. Alright, let me fix that. Okay, I fixed it. I'm just going to play the game quickly. Okay, the balls are falling. The dog can pick up the ball and the dog despawns when it runs off the side of the screen. So everything is despawning. The dog is picking up the balls. And it's looking good. So here's what I did. I realized that the left limit was not set to -45. So it was less than, that's correct, but the left limit needed to be -45 or -45. And that was the only difference, a difference between a positive and a negative number. So I figured it out. I actually, as you can probably see from Unity at the moment, I dropped in this little doggy here and I shifted him back and forth to check the x-axis, and as you can see in the transform position, it's negative. So that was what clued me in to what I'd done wrong, and I fixed the code. So the next step in order of doing this is it says that balls 1, 2, and 3, or red, blue, and green, should be spawned randomly. Well, guess what? I already fixed that because I fixed the array. I added that integer with the array. Yeah, that thing. I did that thing already. So in the SpawnManager, I already added this integer called ball index, which is the random range from 0 to the length of the array, and then I updated it down here. I added the ball index for the rotation, which doesn't change, and the instantiating from the array. So I've done that, and bonus, I can do the bonus challenge. Bonus challenge time. The spawn interval is always the same. Make it a random value between 3 and 5 seconds instead of the fixed 4. So that's the last challenge. I have to check the SpawnManager. Now the spawn interval is currently set to 4. And in order for it to be random, I'm going to have to check my other SpawnManager and just double check. Okay, so that's the spawning the animals is random. So this is it, it's the vector 3 spawn position. That's a random position. And the spawn interval is not random. Spawn interval should be a random.range. So, how do I problem solve this? Not destroy, SpawnManager. I want this spawn interval to be random. So I don't want a fixed 4 seconds. I want it to have a limit of, lower limit of 3, upper limit of 5. I have no idea how to do this. Alright, I'm going to see if I can figure it out, and then I'll explain what I did after having problem solved this. Did I break it? Or did I fix it? Did I put it in the right place? Okay, there's a ball. Let's count. 1001, 1002, 1003. Okay, there's a green one. It seems to be working. I'm missing the balls completely. Okay, let's see when the ball spawns. Okay, spawn 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's about 4 seconds. 3, 4. Okay, it's about 4.5. They seem to be spawning exactly the same. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't think I've actually caused them to spawn at different intervals. There is a way for me to test this, however. If I go back to the Visual Studio, and if I say that it's from a range of 2 seconds to 8 seconds, okay, and I go back to Unity, okay, the balls should be spawning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's doing every 8 seconds now. So it's fixed to 8 seconds. Okay, it's just doing it every 8 seconds instead of doing the range between 2 and 8. I guess I did it wrong. I don't want it to be every 8 seconds. I want it to be randomly between 3 and 5, but you know, I'll set it back. I guess I failed the bonus challenge. I gave it a shot. I wasn't sure. I know. I think I know what's happening. Because it's under the start. At the start of it, it's choosing a random range once, not every time it's spawning. Okay, I'm gonna give it one more try. Okay, I couldn't figure out how to make the balls spawn at random intervals, because when I do invoke repeating, it calls this method down here, but I have to put the float repeat rate in. So I've put in spawn interval, but instead of having a private float spawn interval function up the top, I've put it inside the start. So I've set spawn interval to be a random range, and I've made these 2 attributes here, which I've set to 3 and 5. I tested it at 2 and 8. So basically what this was doing is it would choose a random range when it called this invoke repeating, and that would be the fixed rate, the fixed spawn rate, the fixed spawn interval. So let's say between 2 and 8 it chose 8. It would just drop a ball every 8 seconds. It wouldn't redo the random.range. It would set it once. I tried it without having it here, but you have to put, in invoke repeating, you have to put a float repeat rate. And it has to either be a function that you've set up the top, or a function you've set inside here. And it can't be just random.range. It has to be a function that you've set. Now I also repeated it down here because the hint for this particular part, this bonus part of the challenge, it said change spawn interval in the spawn random ball method. And so I've set a float spawn interval random.range with these 2 floating integers that I've set up the top. And I thought, well, okay, so when it calls it, it's going to choose this random one. And then every time it does the spawn random ball method, it's going to do this random.range between these 2. It didn't. Even having this here, it ignored trying to choose a new random range. It didn't drop the balls at random intervals. It still sets it when it does invoke repeating, despite the fact that it's calling that method. It still chooses a particular interval and it sticks with it through the entirety of the game. So I'm at a loss as to how to make it spawn at random intervals. I've tried and tried. I checked, I asked AI how to do it, and it basically said the exact same thing that I've done here, which is set your two integers, which I'd already done. I'd already done this. Set your two things, call it random.range with those two integers, and make sure that you put it in your invoke repeating thing. And I just can't get it to work. So I'm going to leave it as it is, and it works. It's good. The only thing left now, however, the only thing left now is to make sure that the dog doesn't come pumping out every time you press spacebar, to have a little bit of a delay. So I'm just going to add a delay to the dog, and then I'll show you the final product. I've solved it. Finally. A bonus part of the challenge that I was able to solve, but not on my own. There's no way I could have done this on my own, but it's all a learning experience. I tried booleans and delays and oh my gosh, and it would delay pressing spacebar. There would be a delay when the dog would come out, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted a delay between spacebar presses, and just figuring this out took enough problem solving. Anyway, here it is. So the balls should fall, and I press it, the dog gets the ball, oh, misses the ball, game over. Anyway, I can send a dog out, but if I go space bar, spam the space bar, there is a delay. As you can see, I've set it to 0.5 seconds, so you're not going to get a train of dogs, you're going to get space. No, but there is a delay between them. So there we go. I was able to actually solve this one. I can't make the balls fall at different intervals, but I can limit how many dogs come out. How did I do it? This is how I did it. I set two floating integers. One is the cooldown time, which is basically the cooldown between presses, and last spawn time, which I set to 0. I'm not 100% sure how that works. However, within this if statement, it did say if input.getKeyDownKey space, and then it just had the instantiate. So all I've added is time.time minus last spawn time, that's the 0. If it's greater than or equal to the cooldown time, this 0.5 seconds, then it'll instantiate and the last spawn time equals time.time. I do not understand it. I don't understand. What does time.time mean? I'd love to know. It's something I'll learn. But it works. So time minus 0 is greater than or equal to 0.5 seconds, then it will instantiate. And last spawn time equals time.time. I do not know why it has to go in here. Why do I have to add this bit when I've already said time.time minus last spawn time? Is that to complete the circle? Is it to close the loop? I do not know. Anyway, challenge over. I did everything except for the bonus of random intervals between the balls falling. Just was not able to work that out. Anyway, it's a lot to take in. It was a lot of learning. Hopefully I've remembered a little bit of it, and I think the next challenge, or at least the next project on this coding journey, is going to be my own game, a basic game of my choice, using all of the skills that I've learned over these last 2 prototypes and 2 challenges. So that ends the video. Until then, thank you for watching.